A hush falls over every corner of the globe as if the universe itself holds its breath. Beneath the hum of daily life, morning commutes choked by record-breaking heat domes. Headlines scrolling past escalating cyber espionage scandals. Casual chatter interrupted by the latest AI ethics crackdown. A deeper resonance pulses. A summons from millennia past. In the year AD 95, the Apostle John, exiled on Patmos under the glare of imperial persecution, documented visions so vivid they transcended time itself. Seals cracked like thunderous doors, trumpets wailed forth judgment, and bowls poured wrath across heaven and earth. Fast forward 20 centuries, the words of Revelation, once relegated to allegory and scholarly debate, now bleed into our news feeds with chilling clarity. We scroll past satellite images of wildfire smoke choking entire continents, viral genetic fragments detected in major river systems, and coastal waters stained crimson by unprecedented algal blooms. Yet these are not isolated crises. They align uncannily with John's ancient symbols, suggesting that the prophecy he recorded may be weaving itself into the fabric of our era and converging on the very threshold of 2025. Tonight, you will journey with me from dusty codices preserved in monastic vaults to the glowing screens in front of us. We will decode Revelation as imagery alongside breaking reports like the seismic tremors rattling the Pacific Rim and the looming specter of global food shortages tied to collapsing bee populations, and ask the fundamental question: are we witnessing prophecy unfold or chasing mere coincidences? With each revelation, the line between past and present will blur, revealing a hidden tapestry woven through history, science, and faith. Prepare yourself for a narrative that spans epochs and disciplines. Prophecy speaks not only as warning, but as invitation to watch, to discern, and ultimately, to act, because when the seal is broken, the trumpet sounds, and the bowl is poured, complacency will no longer be an option and the world will demand an answer. A shiver runs through the world as dawn breaks over cities and silent countrysides alike. From the scorched plains of Australia, where record temperatures once again shattered all previous records, to the flooded lowlands of Bangladesh, nature's alarm bells clang with an urgency we can no longer ignore. Yet beneath this clamor of climate upheaval lies a deeper murmur, the ancient whisper of prophecy stirring back to life. In AD 95, on the rocky Isle of Patmos, the Apostle John beheld visions that defied imagination: 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls of wrath. To millennia later, those symbols echo in our headlines. Satellite imagery paints the Amazon in flames. The creeping specter of antibiotic-resistant superbugs ravages hospital wards, and an AI-driven cyber attack last month crippled entire national power grids without a single fired bullet. Tonight, we follow the thread from ancient parchment to modern panic. The first seal, conquest, unfolds not on horseback, but through invisible data streams controlling global economies. The fourth seal, death, no longer rides a pale horse, but lurks in mutated viruses, slipping past defenses we thought impregnable. And now, as we stand on the brink of 2025, the final trumpet-esque blast trembles on the horizon in the form of unprecedented solar storms threatening to plunge us into electromagnetic darkness. Our journey crescendos at the edge of faith and science. We will decipher each cryptic image: the blood-red moon hanging ominously over conflict zones, the pale horse grazing in fields of dying crops, the 7 angels poised to pour their bowls. Alongside cutting-edge research and up-to-the-minute news reports, we'll ask, are these events random disasters, or the ink-stained echoes of John's vision come alive? Brace yourself for a tale that binds past to present, scroll to screen. Prophecy beckons not as myth, but as an urgent summons to bear witness, to seek truth, and to prepare. When the final seal breaks, only those who have watched, listened, and believed will understand the thunder that follows. To unravel how an ancient manuscript speaks into our modern crises, we must first learn its secret language. Revelation cloaks its warnings in for horsemen, atmospheric trumpets, sacred numbers, and uprooting bowls. Only by decoding these symbols can we see their reflection in today's headlines and sense the rising crescendo of judgment. Once, a rider bearing a bow and a crown signified imperial dominion. Today, he returns astride invisible arteries of data. In early 2025, an AI-powered misinformation network swayed elections across 3 continents without a single soldier. No sword drawn, yet entire nations bent beneath its sway. Conquest no longer rides a battlefield. It governs screens and hearts. The great sword cleaves nations in blood. Look to the shifting front lines of geopolitical flashpoints for renewed skirmishes in Eastern Europe. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure in North America and Asia, and proxy conflicts erupting in resource-rich corners of Africa. War's crimson shadow darkens every newsfeed and refugee caravan. Scales in hand, this rider measures scarcity. Global grain reserves have dipped to their lowest point in decades, battered by extreme droughts from the Horn of Africa to California's Central Valley. As fertilizer prices spiked in late 2024, economies teetered. Families ration water and bread, while markets oscillate between panic and desperation. Called death, with Hades trailing close, this steed brings mass mortality. In the past year, a novel antibiotic-resistant superbug dubbed Bacillus X swept through hospitals, evading every last line of defense. Coupled with a record-breaking heat wave that claimed thousands in urban heat islands, the pale horse gallops unchecked across continents. Each trumpet unleashes a cosmic upheaval, an echo of nature's wrath in our era of ecological collapse. First trumpet, hail and fire mix with blood in mid-2025. Exploding hailstorms pounded the Great Plains, shattering crops. Simultaneously, red rain, stained by Sahara dust and wildfire, fell over southern Europe, suffocating vineyards. Second trumpet, a burning mountain cast into the sea. When the submarine volcano Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai roared back to life in early 2025, it erupted plumes that warmed ocean temperatures. Coral bleach-outs spread across the Pacific, turning vast reefs into ghostly skeletons and disrupting marine food chains. Third trumpet, Wormwood start poisoning waters. Wormwood was an apocalyptic metaphor. Now, its PFAS contamination detected in over 40% of U.S. municipal water supplies, prompting toxic forever chemicals to infiltrate bloodstreams and deaden aquatic life. Fourth trumpet, darkening of sun, moon, and stars. A series of unprecedented solar storms in late 2020 for overloaded power grids, triggering continent-wide blackouts in South America and Europe. Night skies dimmed electricity, faltered just as billions depended on it for heat, light, and life support. Later trumpets summoned swarms of locusts, plague-like cyberviruses feasting on networks, and for demonic angels, extremist ideologies gnawing at the foundations of society with radical violence. 70 notes completeness. 7 years of climate accords have yielded mixed results. Global emissions still climb. 12 marks divine governance. Yet, 12 major world powers squabble over carbon tariffs and vaccine patents. 144,000 seals a faithful remnant. Around the globe, grassroots movements, 144,000 strong in membership, organize for sustainable solutions, striving to preserve life's last sanctuaries. 1,260 days, 42 months define the tribulation. Counting backward from spring 2025, we see a 4-year cycle of pandemic emergence, supply chain collapse, and social upheaval that began in early 2021. At the final act, bulls pour forth judgments that intensify the trumpet's woe. Sores afflict humanity as pollution-related cancers surge. Seas turn to blood where red tide blooms choke coastal ecosystems from Florida to Southeast Asia. Rivers of poison flow as mining runoff taints fresh water. Scorching sun ignites wildfires across Siberia and Canada's boreal forests. Darkness envelopes cities during rolling blackouts. Euphrates-like waterways dry, igniting bloodless territorial disputes over diminishing water rights. A voice from the skies proclaims an urgent summons to heed these signs before all hope slips away. By mapping Revelation symbols to these unfolding realities, the ancient text speaks with uncanny resonance. The question remains, Are we reading history in the making, or are these crises merely coincidences? As the heavens tremble and the bowls tilt, only those who discern the patterns may stand ready when the final seal is broken. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. Revelation 8-7. I stood at dawn on a wind-swept plateau. The ground beneath my boots hissed with embers. The air carried ash like dust motes in an eternal eclipse. Craters pocked the forest floor, where hailstones cold as ice yet filled with embers had struck overnight. In the smoky half-light, I watched the horizon flicker with distant infernos. NASA data reveal that the average annual land area burned by wildfires in the United States has risen sharply over the past 2 decades, with 2023 marking one of the worst years on record for acreage lost to flames. In Europe, summer of 2024, two Spanish supercells produced hail up to 8 centimeters in diameter, tennis ball size, shattering rooftops and skylines under a crimson sky. Meanwhile, India's 2024 heat wave forced emergency evacuations as temperatures soared above 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit in Churu, Rajasthan, overwhelming hospitals with heatstroke cases and leaving water supplies dangerously low. Hail and fire once painted apocalyptic metaphors. Today, climate-driven disasters fuse into tangible calamity. Flames leap across parched forests, and ember-filled hailstones rip through sidewalks. Satellite imagery tracks smoke plumes circumnavigating the globe, revelations trumpet crackling across our world. Ecological trauma, once symbolic, now howls like a horn calling humanity to account. Then the second angel sounded. Something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. Revelation 8-9. The dock creaked beneath my weight as I peered into what had once been cerulean waves. A scarlet tide lapped at barnacle-encrusted pilings, water thick with algal toxins, the stench of decay hanging heavy in the humid air. Ocean dead zones, regions starved of oxygen, have quadrupled in size since 1950. Suffocating marine life across vast expanses of the Gulf of Mexico, the Baltic Sea, and the Pacific coast. In 2023, a harmful algal bloom in western Lake Erie covered 312 square miles, turning the water a deep red and killing countless fish and shellfish. Agricultural runoff and warming seas have fueled these red tides, while plastic pollution and oil spills compound the corrosion of marine ecosystems. A burning mountain of waste plastics fragmenting into microplastics, nutrient-rich runoff gushing from farmland cascades into the seas. Fish float belly up, fishermen's nets return empty. Revelation's second trumpet rings as coastal communities reel, livelihoods washed away in a tide of toxic blood. Then the third angel sounded. A great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. Revelation 8:10-11. At a riverside lab, technicians donned full hazmat suits. Their instruments detected viral RNA swirling in the current, an invisible menace riding the flow, turning every drop into a potential vector of disease. During the COVID-19 pandemic, researchers used rivers and wastewater as early warning systems, detecting SARS-CoV RNA in samples from up to 112 river and treatment sites in Malawi, often days before clinical cases spiked. Currently, forever chemicals PFAS have infiltrated public water systems. At least 45% of U.S. tap water supplies were found to contain PFAS at detectable levels in 2023. Wormwood, bitterness in ancient language, manifests as contaminated waters. Invisible pathogens and toxic chemicals turn once pure rivers into bitter torrents of disease and decay. Revelation's third trumpet foreshadows modern biohazards, reminding us that water, the source of life, can become the conduit of death. Then the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars were struck. Revelation 8:12. I climbed to a rooftop under a muted sky. Instead of constellations, a dull orange glow hovered overhead, city lights and satellite reflections blending into an artificial dusk. Since the dawn of the megaconstellation era, the number of active satellites has doubled to nearly 5,000, with plans for 400,000 more by 2030. The resulting debris and reflected sunlight now increase night sky brightness by an estimated 10%, threatening astronomical observations worldwide. Simultaneously, governments imposed 283 internet shutdowns across 39 countries in 2023, the highest on record, severing millions from news, social networks, and critical communications. When heavenly bodies dim, Revelation warns of lost guidance. Today, our sun and moon are data streams and satellites. Debris fields cast an artificial twilight. Digital blackouts plunge communities into information darkness. The fourth trumpet's warning echoes in every offline phone and every starless night. By mapping each trumpet to these unfolding realities, the ancient text speaks with uncanny resonance. Are we witnessing prophecy in motion, or merely cataloging coincidences? As the thunder of the next trumpet draws near, only those who discern these patterns will stand ready when history converges on its climax. The ancient trumpet blasts of Revelation resonate across modern headlines. As we weave these warnings into a single tapestry, a startling picture emerges. By 2025, disparate crises may coalesce into a threshold moment demanding transformative action. Individually, wildfires, ocean toxicity, water contamination, and digital blackouts alarm scientists and citizens alike. Together, they trace the outlines of Revelation's trumpets. Ecological collapse. The 2023 update of the Planetary Boundaries Framework concludes that 6 of 9 boundaries: climate change, biosphere integrity, land system change, freshwater use, biogeochemical flows, and novel entities have already been transgressed, edging Earth toward large-scale irreversible change. UN scientists warn that, if current trends continue, critical tipping points could be crossed by 2025. Water security. More than 2 billion people worldwide lack access to safely managed drinking water, with PFAS forever chemicals found at harmful levels in nearly half of tested U.S. water systems. Rivers once pristine now carry viral fragments and industrial toxins mirroring the Wormwood judgment of poisoned waters. Information warfare. In 2023, governments imposed 283 internet shutdowns across 39 countries, the highest annual total on record, cutting off protesters, blocking news outlets, and silencing dissent. Digital blackouts leave millions in informational darkness, echoing the fourth trumpet's dimming of sun, moon, and stars. Celestial surveillance. Private ventures like Starlink have launched over 6,000 satellites, with plans for tens of thousands more, saturating low Earth orbit and creating hazardous debris fields that brighten night skies and threaten both astronomy and space safety. Together, these patterns form a mosaic of mounting pressure, natural, technological, and social matching Revelation's vision of layered judgments. Why does 2025 stand out as pivotal? Several intersecting timelines converge. 1950th anniversary of Revelation. From AD 95 to 2025 marks 1,930 years. Many prophecy scholars view such anniversaries as signposts for renewed relevance. Midway to 2030 SDGs. The United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals reach their halfway mark in 2025, a global checkpoint for climate action, water security, and digital inclusion. Climate and health forecasts. Models project that, under current emissions scenarios, the Arctic could see nearly ice-free summers before mid-century, an accelerating trend that threatens global weather patterns. Meanwhile, antimicrobial resistance forecasts predict 39 million deaths attributable to drug-resistant infections between 2025 and 2050, underscoring an urgent public health crossroads. Geopolitical realignments. In September 2024, the Council of Europe opened the first legally binding global AI treaty for signature, reflecting escalating concerns over technology governance. January 2025 saw new U.S. executive orders on environmental agreements, signaling shifting power blocks and diplomatic priorities. These threads spiritual numerology, policy deadlines, scientific forecasts, and diplomatic pacts create a crescendo pointing squarely at 2025, a decision point where cumulative crises force transformative choices. As cosmic signs multiply, humanity's gaze turns inward and upward. Search trends and public anxiety. Google's Year in Search 2024 highlighted climate change and net zero as breakout topics, reflecting mounting concern over planetary well-being. Doomsday proximity. In February 2025, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist moved the doomsday clock to 89 seconds to midnight, the closest ever, citing the intertwined threats of nuclear risk, climate change, and emerging technologies. Mystical warnings. Legendary seers, such as Nostradamus and Baba Vanga, returned to headlines with dire 2025 prophecies suggesting wars, natural disasters, and even extraterrestrial encounters, fueling public fascination and fear. Community response. Millions now participate in online forums dedicated to prepping, faith-based discernment, and conspiracy analysis. Apocalyptic and prophetic fiction have surged on bestseller lists as readers seek narratives that make sense of an unraveling world. These spiritual and psychological currents echo Annihilation-'s clarion call. When signs in heaven and earth multiply, humanity searches for meaning, purpose, and preparation. Revelation seals open into trumpets, and these modern crises layer upon each other with growing intensity. By 2025, the tapestry of ecological collapse, water corruption, information blackouts, and astral interference suggests not a single cataclysm, but a critical threshold where accumulated pressures demand that we awaken, discern, and choose a path forward. Only those who heed the warnings and recognize the patterns will be poised to navigate the storm on the horizon. The air still trembles with the echo of trumpet blasts. The sky's warnings have crackled through our screens and scoured our fields. Now comes the moment of decision. The prophetic landscape is laid bare. The question is no longer whether revelation symbols mirror our world, but how we rise to meet them. I remember the first time I felt truly unmoored when rolling blackouts plunged my city into midnight silence and every device fell dark. Since then, I've built a small cache of seeds, grains, and water filters in my closet, enough to sustain a family for weeks. Neighbors trade skills. One teaches rainwater harvesting, another maps underground networks for community messaging when the internet fails. At dawn each morning, I spend 10 minutes in silent meditation, grounding myself against the swirl of fearful headlines and anchor for whatever storms may come. Beyond individual fortitude, I've joined forces with a coalition of urban gardeners, reforesting vacant lots with native trees, each sapling a promise against erosion and flood. We lobby our utility providers to expand renewables, converting silent rooftops into solar arrays. Downstream, volunteers deploy new PFAS capturing membranes at old industrial outfalls, watching the first cleansed water trickle into once poisoned streams. Tech activists draft guidelines for responsible satellite launches, urging space agencies to clear defunct hardware before debris clouds blot out the stars. Together, we stitch a living tapestry of renewal. At the national level, testify before policymakers calling for transparency in the algorithms that shape our information diets, and for binding laws that treat orbital debris as a global commons, not a free-for-all. I've seen draft treaties on pandemic readiness stall in committee. Now, I push for renewed momentum, for a shared respiratory reserve and cross-border rapid response teams. In classrooms, I guest lecture on critical thinking and ethical reasoning, urging students to sift signal from noise in an age of disinformation. Prophecies' power lies not in foreboding, but in its summons to action. The trumpets have sounded, the path splits before us. Will we remain passive spectators as storms gather, or will we become architects of renewal, crafting communities resilient in body, enlightened in mind, and united in spirit? Revelation's final invitation is clear: to watch, to discern, and above all, to act. In the crucible of 2025, Our choices will write the next chapter of history. A hush settles as the final notes of revelation drift across our age-worn world. The scroll, long sealed in shadow, now whispers in the crackle of wildfire, the flush of crimson seas, the bitter flow of tainted rivers, and the dim glow of our fractured skies. As 2025 approaches, these ancient echoes converge into an unmistakable trumpet call and invitation to awaken. How will you answer? Will you stand as a guardian of creation, planting trees where charred stumps smolder, defending rivers from poison, and restoring hope to lands scarred by flame? Will you champion digital freedom, wielding encryption and open-source tools to ensure every voice is heard, every story preserved, despite efforts to silence dissent? Will you root yourself in purpose, cultivating resilience through meditation or prayer, sharpening discernment against the swirl of misinformation, and anchoring your spirit in timeless truths? Share your reflections in the comments below and join our circle of seekers, each insight a spark, each conversation a beacon. If this journey from Patmos's vision to today's headlines stirred your spirit, like and subscribe for our next exploration. Bowls of wrath and vials of mercy. Prophecy's final act. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a revelation. Now is the moment to spread this message. Use hashtag prophecy20to5. Tag friends who hunger for insight and transform apprehension into action. Remember, prophecy is not predestination, it is revelation. It unveils perils. Yes, but also pathways to renewal. Together, we can turn Revelation's warnings into a force for collective awakening, crafting a future woven with justice, mercy, and wisdom. Thank you for watching. Until our next voyage through prophecy's depths, stay vigilant, stay discerning, and may the ancient light guide you through the unfolding tapestry of our shared tomorrow.